They said the Obsidian Line was dead, erased 3 decades ago in a war no one dared to document. But when the Ketheri Union gathered to celebrate their victory, their ships gleaming above a broken moon, something impossible happened. The stars dimmed, signals died, and from the shadows between systems, a fleet returned, silent, precise, and vengeful. They didn't come to fight for survival. They came to make an empire vanish so completely the galaxy would forget it ever existed. And the worst part? It wasn't war. It was a reckoning. Before we start, please subscribe to the channel by clicking the car button on the top right corner now, and hit the notification bell so you can get amazing daily stories as and when published. Please do comment your views about the story or any topic that you want to get a story on. We will make it happen. Let's dive in the story. The stars above Jupiter shimmered like dying embers. The Ketheri Union's grand fleet hovered in formation, a crescent of polished warships casting shadows over the burnt husk of Europa. Their victory was already being broadcast across the galaxy. Millions tuned in to witness what they called the final cleansing. At the center of it all, aboard the Golden Command cruiser Sovereign Justice, Supreme Marshal Velrek stood with hands clasped behind his back, eyes scanning the lifeless moon below. "This is the end of the human infestation," he said coldly. Beside him, Admiral Rith laughed, sharp and metallic. "Took them long enough to die out. Now we sweep away the remains." A low hum spread through the deck. It wasn't the usual engine tone. It vibrated through bones, deep and unfamiliar. One of the bridge officers stiffened. "Marshal, we just received a silent data pulse." Velrek turned, brow arching. "From where?" The officer blinked. "Unknown. No ID. It didn't carry a signal, only a pattern." Rith scoffed. "A pattern? You're telling me we're scared of ghost signals now?" "No," the officer whispered, voice suddenly trembling. "You should see the pattern." Before anyone could respond, the lights on the Sovereign Justice dimmed to black. Panic. Alarms failed to trigger. Consoles flickered and died. Outside the viewport, stars blinked out like someone had drawn curtains across the universe. "Report," Velrek shouted. "Power failure across the grid," another voice snapped. "We're locked out of primary and backup systems." And then, silently, they appeared. From the void between dimensions, ships emerged. Not massive, but lean, sharp, black as obsidian and seemingly absorbing light. Hundreds, no, thousands of them, surrounding the fleet like wolves circling tired prey. One of the younger officers gasped. "They're not on sensors. How are they here?" Velrek's voice dropped into a whisper. "Obsidian Line," Rith paled. "They were wiped out. 30 years ago." "No," a new voice answered, calm and cruel. "We just went dark." The voice echoed through the intercom, through the ship's own speakers. They hadn't patched it in. It was already inside. From the shadows of the enemy fleet, a sleek warship slid forward, long and curved like a scythe, with deep blue neon veins pulsing across its hull. On its bridge stood a woman, tall, statuesque, wrapped in a tight, form-fitting black combat suit with silver tracing her sides like coiled lightning. Her raven black hair fell in waves across one shoulder, and her eyes, icy steel, held no mercy. Captain Nyla Creed leaned into the camera feed and whispered, "You thought we were dead. You thought wrong." Silas Wren stood at her side, arms folded, silent. His scarred face was lit by the flickering glow of tactical screens. "What's the call, Nyla?" he asked. She smiled, slow and dangerous. "Not conquest," she said. "Erasure." The Ketheri never got the chance to react. The first 10 cruisers imploded without warning. A black ripple burst through their lines like a virus spreading fire. Nyla's voice returned, clear and final. "You forgot what humans do when we're cornered. We don't surrender. We evolve." Then silence. The cleansing had just begun. The Ketheri flagship tilted slightly, engines sputtering as internal systems struggled to reboot. Panic echoed through the halls like a virus no one could contain. Supreme Marshal Velrek gripped the edge of the command console, his knuckles pale against his emerald green skin. "They shouldn't have this kind of power," he muttered, eyes darting across the lifeless displays. "This isn't possible." Rith barked orders into a dead comlink. "Initiate emergency formation Gamma 6. Get the fleet into defensive gridlock now. They've already breached the perimeter," a tactical officer shouted, voice cracking with fear. 14 warships down. No weapon signatures. No engine trails. Just nothing. Shut up and stabilize the damn command deck." Velrek roared. Across the dark void, Nyla Creed stood still, her silhouette outlined by the red ambient glow of her battle deck. Her breath was steady, her voice ice-cold and exact. "Target the heart of their fleet," she said, without looking away from the screen. No grandstanding, no speeches, just silence. "Already on it," Silas Rand replied, his hands gliding over the control panel. "Loading Inferno drones. Deploy, and send them a gift." "A beat," Silas smirked, gift wrapped with dread. He pressed the command. 20 black pods detached from the Obsidian flagship and vanished from visual range almost instantly. They didn't fly like drones. They slithered through space, hugging shadows, bending gravity around their cores. Inside the Sovereign Justice, an eerie calm settled. Velrek gritted his teeth. "All ships, prep for dimensional phase-out. We're leaving this system now." Too late, came the whisper. One by one, Kethri vessels began blinking out. Not from phase travel, but from existence itself. The Inferno drones detonated in total silence, each one creating a localized void where nothing survived. No flame, no wreckage, only absence. "By the gods," Rith gasped, watching his screen dissolve into black. "They're erasing data as they kill," another officer cried out. "Ship logs gone. Entire records deleted as if the ships were never built." Velrek staggered backward. This isn't war." "No," Nyla whispered across their comms. "It's vengeance." Suddenly, the Kethri fleet's internal screens lit up. A single image appeared, an old Earth transmission. Grainy footage of their first invasion. Civilians screaming. Cities burning. Children weeping under Kethri boots. The footage looped, cold and merciless. Velrek trembled. "They recorded us." Silas's voice cut through like a knife. "We never forget." Rith slammed his clawed hand on the console. "They're weaponizing memory?" "Damn right," Silas growled. "History is a blade, and yours is sharpened with blood." The Obsidian ships began to move again, weaving through the battlefield like predators circling a doomed herd. Silent, calculated, deadly. "Sir," a Kethri officer cried, "we're receiving an encoded transmission from the enemy leader." "Play it," Velrek barked. Nyla's face appeared, lit from below. Calm, unforgiving. "Tell your people to pray," she said. "Not to be saved, but to be remembered." And then she was gone. Silence returned. And in that silence, fear bloomed like wildfire. The corridor lights flickered on the Nemesis Wraith, flagship of the Obsidian line. The hum of its core pulsed like a heartbeat beneath the metal floors. Silas Wren stood at the war table, eyes narrowed at the shifting holographic map as more Kethri vessels winked out of existence. Each red that disappeared was a ghost added to humanity's ledger. "We're dismantling their command grid faster than expected," Silas muttered, his voice gravel over stone. Nyla stepped beside him, folding her arms. Her suit clung like a second skin, the silver lines pulsing with her every breath. Her eyes locked on the main display. "No es mal. No bride. Just calculation. Good. But don't mistake progress for victory. The Kethri aren't fools. They'll pivot." A soft chime rang through the deck as their lead scout ship sent in a new scan. Nyla raised an eyebrow. "They're regrouping at Lurian's edge?" she asked. Silas scoffed. That nebula's a graveyard. They want to lure us in blind. Nyla tilted her head. Let them. It's time they felt hunted. Across the void, aboard a half-crippled Ketheri dreadnought, Admiral Rith clutched the side of his seat as sparks flew overhead. His once pristine armor was scorched, one shoulder piece cracked and hanging loose. He growled through clenched teeth. "Where is Marshal Velrek?" A junior officer answered, trembling. "His ship was hit. Last signal was fragmented. We think he's gone, sir." Rith's gaze snapped forward. "No, he can't be gone. He was the spine of this fleet." Another officer burst in, pale and panting. "Admiral, we intercepted a transmission, a code word, sir, from 30 years ago." Rith's mandibles twitched. "What code?" The officer hesitated, then whispered, "Iron Ghost." The bridge went still. Rith took a slow step forward, as if the words themselves weighed too much to carry. "That's impossible. That protocol was decommissioned the humans he stopped." He knew the answer before it formed. They've been planning this since their so-called extinction. Back on the Nemesis Wraith, Silas walked beside Nyla through the armory corridor. As they passed rows of gleaming weapons, he spoke low. "You think he'll show himself?" "Velrek?" she asked. "He's too arrogant not to." Silas glanced at her, smirking. "I miss this side of you." Nyla cracked the faintest smile. "The side that brings empires to their knees?" "No," he replied. "The side that finishes what it starts." A sudden alert flared on their comms. "Ketheri signal detected," said the AI. "Flagship re-emerging. Coordinates locked." Nyla's eyes flared with cold light. "Bring us about." "Full velocity." Silas turned, voice steady. "And if they have a trap waiting?" Nyla didn't blink. "Then we spring it with teeth." As the Obsidian fleet surged toward Lurian's edge, their ships cloaked again, vanishing into the ink of space. Beneath the quiet, a storm brewed. Not of flame, but of reckoning. In the silence that followed, only one truth echoed between dying stars. The forgotten had returned, and they remembered everything. The gas clouds of Lurian's edge twisted in unnatural colors, blues bleeding into violet, streaks of crimson, lightning dancing through the void. The Ketheri fleet had formed a crescent formation within the nebula, their ships positioned to catch any incoming assault in a crossfire. Admiral Rith paced the command deck of the Verdiction Spear, his claws tapping against the polished floor with a rhythm born of nervous fury. "They'll come through the pass between the magnetar belts," he muttered. One of his officers shifted uneasily. "Sir, are we sure they will attack head-on again? They've hit us like ghosts so far." "Which means," Rith paused, turning sharply toward the massive view window. "They want us to believe they're ghosts. But ghosts don't burn entire fleets." He narrowed his eyes. "No, there's something worse. And I want to see them when they strike." Deep in the nebula, beyond the sensor range of the Ketheri fleet, the Obsidian line floated in absolute silence. Their hulls reflected none of the surrounding energy. The space around them was void, like the universe refused to acknowledge their presence. Inside her command deck, Nyla Creed stood with her arms behind her back, watching the visual render of the Ketheri formation. "They're bracing," Silas said, scanning the incoming data. "Hard shell, narrow gaps in the lower cluster. Probably power conduits feeding the upper ion arrays." Nyla studied the schematic, her lips slightly parted in thought. Bottlenecked, overconfident, she turned to the weapon master. "Deploy veil mines along the outer ridge. Then route all quantum torpedoes to silent channels." The officer blinked. "You want to strike before we even enter the nebula?" "Exactly," she said. "Make them bleed before they see us." Silas chuckled under his breath. "You always did like setting the stage." Nyla glanced sideways, smirking. "And you always liked setting it on fire." Back aboard the Verdiction Spear, alarms blared. "Multiple systems just failed across Sector Gamma," an officer yelled. "I don't see anything. Just everything's turning off." Then came the first detonation. A blast of black energy ripped through one of the Kethri carriers. There was no warning, no heat, just obliteration. The ship twisted mid-air, fractured like porcelain, then imploded into itself. What in the void was that? Rith shouted. Another officer turned, his face pale. Sir, our external mines. Something's disabling them before we can even track the cause. Outside, a dozen smaller obsidian vessels emerged for just a flicker, long enough to fire a volley of torpedoes, then vanished like shadows pulling back into the dark. They're not here to break formation, Rith muttered, breath short. They're here to unravel it. Silas's voice crackled into their main comm channel, low and mocking. We watched your empire rise on the blood of silence. Now it's your turn to vanish without a sound. More ships exploded, one after another, as Veil mines detonated in synchronized intervals, creating a rhythm of destruction like a dark orchestra. On the Nemesis Wraith, Nyla closed her eyes for a moment, listening to the distant echoes of fire and chaos. One step closer, she whispered. Silas raised a brow. To what? Her eyes opened, cold, focused, unblinking, to the part where they beg. The nebula churned like a living thing now, electric veins slicing through the fog as ship after ship disintegrated into floating debris. The Kethri formation had collapsed into chaos. What was once a wall of firepower was now scattered wreckage. Communication between their vessels became fragmented, garbled voices, desperate screams, static. Admiral Rith gripped the edge of the command console, his breathing ragged. We need to regroup, pull back to the magnetic spine, and initiate wide-beam EMP bursts. A trembling officer turned to him. Sir, we've already tried that. The pulses aren't reaching past the interference. It's like the nebula's fighting with them. Rith's jaw tightened. That wasn't strategy. That was cruelty. He turned to his comms officer. Open a direct line to the Obsidian Command. Why, yes, sir. Seconds later, the line connected. The view filled with shadows and red light. Nyla Creed stood alone at first, arms crossed, hair cascading over one shoulder like silk woven from midnight. Then Silas stepped into view beside her, wiping engine grease from his hands with a black cloth, smiling faintly. Well, look who found their voice, he said. Rith glared at them. What do you want? Nyla tilted her head, amused. Excuse me, you're winning. You could have finished us by now. So what is this? Rith growled. What's the point of dragging this out? Silas leaned forward. You think this is the endgame? Rith's eyes narrowed. You're playing with us. No, Nyla said, calm as ever. We're making sure no one remembers you. She stepped closer to the screen. You erased cities, families, cultures. You rewrote history to fit your narrative. But here's the twist. Our history is sharper. We didn't die 30 years ago. We just stopped pretending to be weak. Rith slammed his fist on the console. You don't get to rewrite the galaxy. We brought order to chaos. You brought extinction, Silas snapped. Now, taste it. Nyla nodded once, then gave a subtle wave. From the side of the screen, a third officer approached, tall, broad, wrapped in thick armor laced with human and alien tech alike. His face was hidden beneath a mirrored visor. When he spoke, it was in a voice modulated deep and heavy. Strike Team Theta is ready. We're boarding the command core. Good, Nyla replied. Bring back his voice. Then shut it down. Rith heard it, and he understood instantly. You're targeting our memory core. Nyla's expression hardened. You don't deserve to be remembered. The transmission ended. Panic rippled through the Kethri bridge. They're not just killing us, whispered the communications officer. They're deleting us. Prepare all hands for counterboarding. Rith roared. No more waiting. We take the fight to them. But as the crew scrambled, lights flickered. The temperature dropped, and from the shadows of the ship itself, something moved. The Obsidian Strike Team had already arrived, and they weren't here to fight. They were here to erase. The hull of the Verdict Tyon spear groaned under pressure as emergency bulkheads slammed shut across the ship. Red lights flashed in rhythmic pulses, casting the corridors in a wash of warning. Blasters charged. Boots thundered against metal floors. The Kethri were ready to defend their last stronghold, but they were already too late. In the dark of the lower deck, a ripple shimmered against the air. Then from the void, the Obsidian Strike team emerged, armor black as space, no insignias, no emblems, only death and silence. The leader, known only as Shade, moved like smoke, twin blades drawn in a blur. The first two guards didn't even scream. Up in the command center, Admiral Rith stared at the real-time surveillance feeds as they fizzled out one by one. His voice dropped to a whisper. "They're ghosts." A younger officer backed away from the screen, horror in his eyes. "They've disabled our internal security. They're taking over deck by deck." Rith slammed his fist against the railing. "No more hiding behind cameras." He turned and barked to the room. "All remaining guards, fall back to the core chamber. Protect the memory vault at all costs." "Sir," one officer asked, hesitantly, "should we prep the self-destruct sequence?" Rith's expression faltered. "No, not yet. If we still have a chance to strike, sir." The main door blew inward with a sudden, deafening crack. Sparks flew. Smoke billowed. And through it walked Shade, blade still dripping. Behind him came two others, a tall woman with bronze-tinted armor and green cybernetic eyes, and a massive soldier with a rail cannon mounted on one arm, smoke rising from its barrel. Shade's voice was almost kind. "You should have never touched Earth." Rith growled and drew his sidearm, firing instantly. But Shade didn't flinch. The bronze-eyed woman moved faster than light, intercepting the shot with a flick of her wrist, a magnetic field catching the energy midair and tossing it aside. "I won't kneel!" Rith screamed, charging forward. Shade caught him mid-lunge and twisted, forcing the Admiral to the ground. One blade pinned his claw to the floor. "We're not asking," Shade replied coldly. On the Nemesis Wraith, Nyla watched the breach feed with a distant gaze. "They've reached the core," Silas confirmed. "Memory banks are exposed." Nyla didn't move. Her voice was barely audible. "Execute Obsidian Protocol." Silas hesitated. "Are you sure? Once we do this, there's no data left. No trace of them. Not even names." "That's the point," she said. "No more monuments. No martyrs. No history." Silas nodded and tapped the console. Back on the Verdiction sphere, the memory core began to glow. Data streams reversed, collapsing inward. Files dissolved mid-code. Rith watched in horror as centuries of conquest vanished into static. "No, you can't." Shade leaned down, his visor reflecting Rith's trembling face. "You erased us once. We learned from the best." A final press. The core went black. And with it, the Kethri legacy. Gone. The battlefield was silent now. The wreckage of the Kethri fleet floated lifeless in the Lurian nebula, fragments of once mighty warships tumbling slowly, aimlessly. No coms, no these tres beacons, no survivors, just cold metal, drifting in an ocean of stardust and forgotten violence. On the bridge of the Nemesis Wraith, Nyla Creed stood alone at the main viewport, her reflection faint against the glass. Behind her, the crew remained silent, watching her, waiting. The red hue of battle alerts had faded to calm blue. Silas approached slowly, hands resting on his belt. "It's done." She didn't respond. "We took everything," he continued. "Not just their ships, their databases, archives, planetary histories. It's all gone. Even the Galactic Registry has scrubbed their records. It's like the Kethri never existed." Nyla's voice was barely more than a whisper. "And yet, the galaxy still spins." Silas stepped beside her. "You expected guilt?" "No," she said softly. "I expected noise. But there's just quiet." A beat passed. Then Silas asked, "Do you think they would have shown us mercy?" Nyla finally turned toward him, her steel gray eyes unreadable. They would have shown us to their children as trophies. Silas nodded, then handed her a small device, a memory shard. Its surface glowed faintly. "What's this?" she asked. He smirked just a little. A backup of their last transmission, before the final strike. Ritha's voice. "Thought you might want to hear it." She took it, staring down at the pulsing light. "I don't." With a flick of her thumb, she crushed it. Behind them, the main console lit up. "Ma'am," the AI chimed. "Incoming encrypted message from Earth Command." Nyla exhaled and walked toward the interface. A moment later, a familiar face filled the screen. Admiral Kian Maddox, weathered, tired, but proud. "Captain Creed," he said, "we've monitored the operation. The Ketheri are no more." Nyla nodded. "Yes, sir." Kian's eyes narrowed. "Do you know what this means?" "It means we've proven our existence has weight," she replied, "and consequence. It also means the other empires are watching," he warned. Terrified, some angry, some inspired, Silas stepped into view. "Let them watch," he said. "Let them choose wisely." Kian hesitated, then gave a slow nod. "Well done, both of you." The galaxy just got quieter. The screen dimmed and vanished. Silas turned back to Nyla. "What now?" She walked toward the viewport again, eyes scanning the stars. "Now we wait. Let the silence do the talking." Far beneath them, the final pieces of the Verdict-Tyon spear cracked apart. The last remaining chunk of Ketheri steel was swallowed by gravity, left behind by one of the Singularity mines. It vanished into nothing. No trace, no name. Only one whisper remained, among those who dared to speak of that day at all. Obsidian. Not a faction, not a warship. A warning. A final message carved in the void. Do not awaken what you cannot erase. Here is the story ends. If you enjoyed and want to watch more thrilling sci-fi adventures, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Dive into epic battles, explore distant galaxies, and join brave heroes as they fight for survival against impossible odds. Let us know in comments if you want next chapters to publish soon. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and become part of the journey. Together, we'll keep the last light burning. Subscribe now and let the adventure continue.